Hello, everybody. We apologize for starting late, but there were some technical issues that we were dealing with. I want to welcome you to our today's presentation. I'll be doing it. My name is George Mwongera. I'm a clinical psychologist at Kenyatta National Hospital. And today we are following up on what we've been discussing before. Last time we were discussing about stress, especially that is common with healthcare workers. Today, we still going to deal with something similar to that, but this is more specific now on vicarious trauma. And this is also common within healthcare workers, which is very important that all of us understand it and even know how to deal with it. Therefore, I would wish to welcome all of you so that we can be able to go through the slides. And after that, we are going to have some feedback and probably some questions from the presentation. So welcome. So today we are talking about vicarious trauma. It comes with various names, which we'll find out later, so that we can be able to understand exactly what it is. So allow me to. So what is vicarious trauma? Vicarious trauma is the process of change that happens because one, and which is very important, you care about other people. So that's the underlying thing. You care about other people who have been hurt. So you're caring for people who have gone through a traumatic experience or been hurt. And then is the other underlying point is you feel committed or responsible to help them. So there are people who have been hurt, you're taking care of them, and from you feel like it is your responsibility to take care of them. Over time, this process can lead to change in your psychological, physical, and spiritual well-being. Secondary traumatic stress, or what Figley, 1995, calls compassion fatigue, refers to the adverse reaction of helpers who seek to aid trauma survivors. And this stress is often used interchangeably with vicarious trauma. That is secondary traumatic stress is often interchangeably, it is exchanged with vicarious trauma, although vicarious trauma implies more permanent than temporary stress responses. But also, I felt that it's good also to understand other kind of trauma stresses so that we don't confuse between the others. And one of the things that I would wish that we understand is burnout. And burnout is defined as a prolonged response to chronic emotional and interpersonal stressors on the job, which consists of three components, that is exhaustion, depersonalization, that is defined as disengagement or detachment from the world around you, and diminished feeling of self-efficacy in the workplace. It reflects a form of energy depletion. In other words, this is work-related, and it is because of it's things to do with your workplace. So that's why you get the burnout. Then something that also we covered last week is on stress. And we said stress is your way body responds to any kind of demand. And we talked about good stress and what we call psychological distress. And we said use stress, which is good stress. This one helps you to achieve, to fulfill some goals. So it is a positive form of stress. But the negative one is when now you have unpleasant feelings or emotions that impact on your level of functioning. So that's a difference between the two stresses. And now we go now into details discussing on vicarious trauma. And this is a process of change. It's not one-time occurrence. It's something that is accumulative. It accumulates with time as you have contact with survivors of violence or disaster or people who are struggling or with something. It happens to you as you witness cruelty, loss of hear distressing stories. That is day after day, year after year. So it's what we call accumulative. You accumulate it as you work. So vicarious is an ongoing process of change over time that results from witnessing or hearing about other people's suffering and needs. And there's also something that is very key in vicarious trauma. That is what we call countertransference. And countertransference is implies that helper response is influenced by the helper's own unresolved issues. In other words, you are putting yourself into the shoes of you're kind of seeing yourself as the person who is going through that, because you yourself you have your own unresolved issues. And so this one may influence, and this leads to avoidance of identification with the client, because now you are seeing yourself as the person who is going through the trauma or the problem. And therefore, you overreact because you have not dealt with your own issues. The helper may take on an protective role of the client, becoming the champion of the client. You are like now, you are the rescuer. You have taken yourself to be, you are the only person who can be able to solve your client problem. So you are like now a surrogate frontal robe for the client, which happens especially now when you have not dealt with your own issues and the patient or your client is going through the same issues. So this is something to think about. What are some of the ways that you have changed over time because of your work, especially for those who work in very demanding critical areas. Probably you work in an ICU, accident and emergency department, you're working in burns unit, maybe you have a counseling center where every other time you're seeing maybe gender-based violence survivors. So think about it. How has it changed about your way of working? Probably this is something that you need to reflect in terms of your attitudes, in terms of feelings, in terms of even your spirituality. Probably there's a way it has impacted on you. So how does it happen? Vicarious trauma happens because one, and which is very important, we said it is because you care. And because you empathize with the people who are hurting. Empathy, we said it is you are taking the as if position, or you are sharing or you are entering into your patient or client world, phenological world. You are taking their position and feeding it with them. Empathy is the ability to identify with another person, to understand and feel another person's pain or joy. So empathy does not mean you're exactly feeling what they are feeling, but you are just imagining you are taking their position and now giving feedback of what you are feeling or imagining. So empathy is not complete until you give a feedback to your patient or to your client. So when you identify with the pain of people who have been enduring terrible things, you bring their grief, fear, anger, and despair into your own awareness and experience. And many healthcare providers are very committed to their work and take their responsibility very deeply. This is not necessarily a bad thing. However, feeling deeply committed and responsible can contribute to the process of vicarious trauma. Your commitment and sense of responsibility can lead to high expectations and eventually contribute to your feeling burdened, overwhelmed, and perhaps hopeless. This one comes as a result of sometimes your own expectations are not met, either because probably the resources are not enough, or probably the issues that your client or your patient is going through are beyond you. Probably you have to consult other people, you have to consult other agencies, and therefore in the process, things don't work as you expected. Therefore, you're now you feel overwhelmed, you feel burdened, and sometimes hopelessness. So a key component of vicarious trauma is changes in spirituality and can directly impact on the way you see the world and your deepest sense of meaning and hope. This is probably you're dealing with traumatized people, for example, who have been severely sexually abused, or those who have gone through disaster and they have deep and issues. And sometimes you start wondering, for example, those who are faith-based, is there a God? Why is God allowing these things to happen? Why them? And so there's that sense, it changes your spirituality. And even the meaning and hope, sometimes you get to a point of feel like there's no hope in the world if this is what is happening. For example, you can imagine where we have disasters, terrorist attacks, and many people are killed or there are so many casualties. Sometimes there's that sense of, are we really safe in this world? So there's a lot of insecurity within you. So what should we do about vicarious trauma? So the question is, should we try and stop caring so much? Should we stop empathizing with the people who are hurting? Should you stop feeling committed? and responsible? Should you quit your job? These are options, but they are better options. Simply understanding more about vicarious trauma is the first great step. So you need to understand about it, and you can be able now after that know how to deal with it. So that does not tell us we start our work or we stop empathizing, but awareness and understanding about it will help us to take the very first step to dealing with it. So what are the risk factors of vicarious trauma? For health provider, one is what we call personality and coping style. How you experience and process your feelings about pain and suffering of those affected by violence and disaster and disease will significantly influence your experience with vicarious trauma. So, one, there are two options. You may shut down completely to protect yourself from others' suffering, or take home all their pain and let it build like a smoldering volcano, and you can have a big problem in the long run. So either of them, when you shut down, you cross any other feelings towards your client or your patient, that does not mean you're protecting yourself or it's better coping skills. Or even when you take everything and you go with it home, that also is not a good way of dealing with it. So those people who have experienced trauma before may identify more closely with particular types of pain or loss others have experienced and may be more vulnerable to experience vicarious trauma. What do I mean by this is that for healthcare workers who might, for example, have gone through a certain trauma and now they are giving service to a client or a patient who is experiencing the same kind of trauma, they are more likely to identify with that person. And therefore, the chances of them having the cumulative stress is very high because of their personal history. Current life circumstances, added stress in other areas of your life can make you more vulnerable. For example, if someone you love is ill, your partner has lost his job, worried about money, for example, during this time of COVID-19, when people are really going through financial difficulties, then it becomes you are more likely to get or to have vicarious trauma. Social support. If you don't have adequate social support, you have increased risk of vicarious trauma. Spiritual resources. Lack of connection with a source of meaning, purpose, and hope is a risk factor for developing more problematic vicarious trauma. And this is very common, especially people who have no any religious inclination. They are more vulnerable to that because they have no that sense of connection, sense of hope, or purpose sometimes. Work style, that is unsustainable profession and work-life boundaries, and unrealistic ideas and expectations about work can contribute to more vicarious trauma. This is probably you feel that you're obliged to do this and that, but those expectations are not met. In other words, you bite more than you can chew, that can predispose you to more vicarious trauma. Situation, the professional role, work setting, and exposure. Workers in different jobs, wards, clinic experience different demands, constraints, and priorities. Probably you a healthcare worker who is working in maybe an IDU or working in a advanced unit is more exposed to traumatic patient than someone who is working in the general ward. Probably someone who is working in a counseling center somewhere, and someone who is now dealing with probably people or refugees, people who have been displaced, people who have gone through traumatic, their experiences are different. So your job can predispose you to your professional role, what you're praying, what law are you praying in the same. For example, even you may be serving the same population of traumatic people, but the levels of work or assignment are different. So there are those who are more exposed than the others. Then there is agency and institution support. And how effective is the management supporting the staff when they come to giving their services? Is there open communication? Is there good staff care? I remember last week we talked about what the management can do to minimize stress at the place of work. Probably the issue of providing adequate what we talked about, adequate PPEs, adequate resources, adequate equipment. And so those are some of the things. So is the management there to support the staff? Then the affected population responses and reactions. And when people experience traumatic events, they react differently and interact in ways that healthcare provider can find frustrating and bewildering. Probably you are with a community of people who are so much expressive in the way they react to their trauma, compared to another kind of community where they are not very reactive or expressive when it comes to their traumatic experience. Probably you can be in a ward, you're in a advanced unit, and the patient is crying, screaming, and doing all that, or throwing tantrums. And then there's also a population of patients or clients who are not that dramatic. So for those who are exposed to the other kind of patient, they are more likely to can contribute to them acquiring the vicarious trauma. The cultural context, that is cultural of tolerance. Some societies differ in how and whether they value healthcare providers. When healthcare providers feel unwelcome or are generally perceived as part of the problem, their chances of experiencing more problematic vicarious trauma increases. That is, how is the society or the people that you are serving receptive to your services? Do they see you as a part of their problem or as someone who is out there to help them? So their reception and their perception towards the healthcare workers can contribute a lot. Then there's cultural styles of expressing distress and extending and receiving assistance. How people have different cultural orientations in terms of expressing distress, and then how they receive the assistance can also contribute to that. Not understanding cross-cultural differences in expressing distress and extending and receiving assistance can contribute to an increased risk of VT. For example, there are some cultures, for example, when they lose their loved one, they will really cry a lot, they will, and express their loss verbally and even physically, the way they behave. And the other cultures where they don't. When someone dies and they don't have those expressive emotions. So if you are a healthcare worker and you're dealing with these two kind of communities, you're more likely to get affected from how the community or the culture expresses their trauma. And therefore, it's so important to understand the kind of people that you're dealing with. Then there are signs and symptoms of vicarious trauma. Some of the common difficulties associated with vicarious trauma includes difficulty managing your own emotions. You become impulsive. You're not able to control your own emotions. That's why you find yourself, when maybe get angry, you are so agitated, you're not able to control your anger. If it is feeling of you know other feelings, you're not able to control your emotions. Then difficulty in accepting or feeling okay about yourself. This is because you've been exposed to too many traumatic incidences, or you have been serving so many people with difficult issues that you don't feel like it is okay to feel okay. You have difficulty in accepting feeling okay. You feel it's like, no, it's it's not right to feel okay. Then difficulty in managing boundaries between yourself and others. Taking on too much responsibility, having difficulty leaving work at the end of the day, trying to step and control others' lives. So you feel like you probably work in a ward and it is your time to go for in the evening or in the morning. You feel like you should not be going home to rest. You want just to be there to nurse the patient. You want to be there to to take care of your patient. And that one is another sign of VT, vicarious trauma. You're not able to maintain boundaries, problem in relationship, especially the significant others. You're not able to communicate. You're not able to relate well with the significant others, probably your family members, your friends, your colleagues at place of work. There's issues. Then there's physical problems such as aches, illnesses, and accidents. You become more vulnerable to aches because probably your immunity has gone down because of the stress you're going through. Then you're about also to make accident here and there. You're causing some accident. That's a sign. Then difficulties feeling connected to what is going on around or within you. You have difficulties. You're not connected to your environment. For example, remember last time we said one of way to manage stress is getting control of your environment. Are you in control of what is happening around you? So when you have vicarious trauma, you have difficulties connecting to what is going around you or within you. Then loss of meaning and hope. Life becomes meaningless. Issues with spirituality, things to do with perception. You start, there's that loss of hope. Is there hope? For example, you're working in a population where there's devastating issues like floods, things to do with maybe what you've been experiencing in our country, like the terrorist attacks and many other things. You wonder, is there hope in life? So it changes your own perception. Then change in worldview or frame of reference, that is change in spirituality. You start changes that you have change in beliefs regarding meaning and purpose in life, and that can cause loss of purpose, hopelessness, and also having negative thoughts and even statements. Changes in identity. You find most of the time and energy is spent on your professional role because you feel disconnected from or uncomfortable in your other role of identities. So if probably you're a healthcare worker, you feel more comfortable being in your professional role than being the other role. For example, your mother, your sister, your wife, your husband, you are someone else out there. So adopting to your other identities becomes very difficult. You always want to play your professional role, even when at that moment it is not. You want to manage the situation as a profession other than from the other part. Changes in beliefs related to major psychological needs, e.g., worrying about safety issues, mistrust of strangers, and actions, e.g., being more protective to your children. You can imagine, for example, when we were having the issues I'm also revisiting about it, about the terrorist attacks, people became so suspicious of strangers. So even people who are innocent, they can have mistaken identity, and these people are the ones who are doing this. These people are the ones who are causing this. All probably for those workers who work in a burnt unit, and you are nursing a child who was burnt from a gas explosion in the house. And this one is in you. So every time you're with your children, you feel so protective. You don't want them to go near the kitchen, and you become too protective over other people or people around you. Then there's physical and psychological signs. Hyperarousal symptoms. You start having nightmares, difficulties in concentrating, or being easily startled and having difficulty, sleep difficulties, repeated thoughts or images regarding traumatic events, especially when you are trying not to think about it. So intrusive thoughts, you start having intrusive thoughts of the traumatic event, feeling numb. In other words, you feel this, you have no feeling at all. You are just numb. You then feeling unable to tolerate strong emotions and increased sensitivity to emotion. So you become so emotional. You can react. Even in small issues, you find yourself you're overreacting. Those are some of the psychological signs. Increased sensitivity to violence. So in any case, you are in a situation where there'll be violence, you get so sensitive. Cynicism, and then general despair and hopelessness and loss of idealism, guilt regarding your own survival, pressure, anger, disgust, and fear. So these are some of the things that you might experience. Behavioral or relationship signs. There's difficulty setting boundaries and separating work from personal life. I mentioned before that you are not able to draw boundaries between your professional work and your personal life. So every other time you are playing the role of the profession other than the personal life. Feeling like you never have time or energy for yourself, and feeling disconnected from your loved ones even when communicating with them. Then there's increased conflict in relationship. This is as a result of you feel people don't understand you. And even also other people, especially the significant others, they also don't understand you because the way you behave, the way you reason, your attitudes to them is different. Then there's general social withdrawal. You don't want to be with the people. You feel you have too much. You just want to have your own space. That's another sign. Then experiencing the silence response, finding yourself unable to pay attention to other distressing stories because they seem overwhelming and incomprehensible. You've had too much. So anything else you don't want to hear, I don't want to hear any more of those stories. So you want to be in that silence response. The decreased interest in activity that used to bring pleasure, enjoyment, and relaxation. So there are those things probably you used to enjoy. You feel you no longer enjoy them, anhedonia. Then you become irritable, intolerant, agitated, impatient, and always moody. So these are some of the signs. Then there's increased dependency or addictions involving nicotine, alcohol, food. There are those who even involved addiction in food, sex, shopping, internet, and other substances. So there is increased dependencies. You can depend or get into addiction. Then on the other side, they can also have sexual difficulties, probably loss of interest in sexual activities. That is what we call low sexual libido, impulsivity. You become impulsive, you're not able to control your emotions. So how can vicarious trauma affect others? This is now, that was the person with it. How would it affect others? So there's withdrawal. You are withdrawn from others by using alcohol, lack of sleep, diminished sexuality, parental overprotectiveness, loss of compassion and hope. And if you think vicarious trauma is not your family, affecting your family, just ask them. This, you can get a feedback from those people around you. What do you think has changed in me? And you may be shocked to hear the feedback they are going to give you. So it's an assignment for those who are listening. Probably find out if you, from your people around you, and find out from them if there are any changes they have noticed in you. So how is it going to affect your work? Make decisions without adequate reflection. You make quick decisions. You make a lot of mistakes that cost time and money, and even put people at risk. Probably you're working in a very sensitive area. There are procedures that you're supposed to adhere to, and you find you're not very keen to some of those procedures, which now may put other people at risk. You take on too much work and assignment that the team from the team, and sometimes you are ill prepared to complete them well. Because there is that sense of responsibility. I'm responsible to this, so you take too much more. You bite more than you can chew, and this affects your productivity. And then not not fully, you do not fulfill commitments. You do things halfway, and then you don't fulfill those commitments that you're supposed to do. Take excessive and planned time off, because remember it's talked about fatigue. You don't have the energy, so most of the time you find you are taking time off. You're also blaming others blame others instead of seeking to understand and to work with them. There's devalue and ridicule staff and patient and supervisors. You will now start having exchanges with the staff or the supervisors, and you are not connected to them. There are conflicts. Then, of course, because of your negativity, you can now infect your colleagues with the same, and they also lose motivation. You can be infectious with your own condition to your colleagues that you're working with. So how do you address it? How do you cope with vicarious trauma? It's first, it means identifying strategies that can both help prevent vicarious trauma from becoming severe and help manage the vicarious trauma during times when it is more problematic. And one of it is escape, get away from it physically or mentally. Either you can take a day off, and this taking day off is not what we call taking many offs. This is a purpose, you've purpose to do it, and you've arranged for it. And then you're also talking to friends about other things other than work. You can talk about other things other than just always talking about your work. Then the other one is rest. Take good time, have time to rest, time to relax. Also, this also we discussed last time about lifestyle, changing the lifestyle among the 4 A's we discussed last week. Play, engage in activities that make you laugh and lighten your spirit. This also can be, so that can also help you in the same. Then transforming, transforming vicarious trauma means identifying ways to nurture a sense of meaning and hope. How do you now bring in the sense of meaning and hope in your life? Reminding yourself of the importance and the value of health care work. You feel like, this work I'm doing is important, rather than just making it becoming just like a routine. To you, it's just a routine, but when you feel like, yes, I'm out to help people, it is valuable, then it minimizes that. Then staying connected with family, friends, and colleagues. Make purpose to get connected with the people around you. That is building a good support system. And therefore, not uh, noticing so many things, those small things, you know, do them, you know, don't don't take them for granted. Even just a moment to have time with yourself, and then also maybe taking a cup of tea and cup of coffee would also be very important to you, and connecting with others. Just even being there, listening to the sound of the wind, and that would be important. Small things is very important. Marking transitions, celebrating joys and mourning losses with the people you care about through traditional rituals or ceremonies. Being part of the society, what people are going through. When they are happy, celebrate with them. When they are mourning, be with them. So this also part of, you are emptying the accumulated effect of vicarious trauma. Taking time to reflect, that is reading, writing, prayer, and meditation. Take time to reflect on things that are within you, your spirituality, and even your psychological aspect. Identifying and changing your cynical beliefs, those negative thoughts that you have, and things are not okay, things are getting worse. You challenge those thoughts. Then undertaking growth, promoting activities, learning, do something that will promote your growth. You can probably go back to class or do something that is going to help you. Hester probably can maybe say something. I can see you are raising your hand as we conclude. Maybe you need a clarification. Esther? Okay. So maybe you can finish, then you talk. I can see Esther. Okay, let's move on. So engage in healing activities that renew meaning of life, both in therapy and out of therapy sessions. So it is very important for those healthcare workers who work in those critical areas. Please take time to go for therapy sessions, and also engage in life generating activities like gardening, painting, and enjoying nature. These are creative activities that can help you in the same. And then engage in behavioral activities. If possible, remit overall case loads. Have work within your limits. Don't have so much within yourself. And where appropriate, share reactions with clients in a reflective manner. Being uh, empathetic to your client. Using uh, empathic uh, statement, using empathic statement. This is part of the healing process. Then be gentle with yourself. Find a comfortable pace. Make yourself comfortable at place, at work, and at home. Give yourself permission to be cared for and to be cancelled. You are not the expert always. Allow other people to take care of you. Allow other people to give you advice. Allow other people to nurture you, other than always you're the only one who is in charge of yourself. This can be a healing effect to yourself. Then use your cognitive abilities. Recognize that you are not alone in experiencing the vicarious trauma. You are not alone in this. So knowing that you are not alone validates and normalizes your reaction. Don't feel you are the only one who is going through that. Then set realistic expectation of yourself and your client. Recognize your limitation and the fact that therapists will make mistakes. Maybe allow yourself, be fair to yourself. When you make mistakes, forgive yourself and move on. Then challenge negativity, minimize self-blame, and blame in others. This is very key. So, what can the helper initiated activities? Taking stock, access your network of supportive people at work and outside your work. Then seek peer support, especially for those who are in mental health. Go for those counselor supervision. peer supervision. Talk to your colleagues and friends. It will help you. Don't be embarrassed or ashamed to ask for support. And then have someone to mentor, a mentor and a peer supervision, someone who can mentor you in this process. And then finally, we have the ABC as some of intervention. One is A, awareness. You should check yourself regularly, how you're feeling physically and emotionally. Can you figure out at least some of the reactions why you might be feeling this way? So self-awareness is very key. It will help you manage your own responses that things don't so that things don't get worse. Then B is balance. This means balancing your work with the rest of your life. Remember, we said there's a possibility of people becoming more professional, playing the professional role other than other roles. There are other roles. So balance between your professional life and your personal life, and so that you are not overwhelmed. Then connecting as an essential part of a spiritual connection is to find one's own path of connecting. Spirituality is fundamental to understanding the way in which a person finds purpose and meaning in life. This is Leanne, 1995. So having that spiritual sense can help you in terms of now having hope in life other than seeing the other part of like life has no meaning, you are no longer secure. So it gives you hope and helps you to stress. And then I'll end there. Thank you so much for taking time to listen. Probably we can have some feedback and some questions from there. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, probably some responses, and then your question or experience. You can share with us some experience. Probably those who have been working in those areas, you can share an experience of what you've been going through. So you can unmute yourself and then say something. Okay, John. John, I can see your hand up. Please, can you continue? And also Esther. Please unmute yourself, John and Esther,
George,
and then ask.
Dr.
Yes.
George, how are you?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Dr. Yes.
Yes, I wanted to request that we give Sophie.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. It's okay. It's okay.
Before you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sophie?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, George, for such an in-depth presentation. I think you really captured it very well. Even adding on something might be a challenge for me. I'm Sophie, a clinical psychologist based here in Nairobi, and also working with KPA. And so I think for me, the only thing I could add on is sometimes as healthcare workers, we also need to protect ourselves. Sometimes the details, when you're taking history from a client and asking, what happened, and maybe sometimes when you go deeper into the details, that could also lead to vicarious trauma. And so just being conscious of why you're asking the questions as you work with your clients and patients. Do you really need to know that information, or is it more of a point of curiosity? Because sometimes it could be that the more information you take on and the more graphic it becomes, especially in the early stages, if you're not established safety and all those things, then that could also have an impact on you moving forward. So sometimes maybe containing our curiosity of, even as you're trying to help people and trying to help our clients and get them to a better place, we also need to take care of ourselves and just wonder whether or not we really need those details. And probably the only other thing I'd like to add on is when trying to cope with vicarious trauma, or any traumatic stress really, maybe there's some 2 tips I'd like to add on to what Bwana Mongera has already so eloquently laid out. You could add on like a concept called the oasis. That's really an activity that requires your attention and your concentration. So doing something non-work related that will now require you to focus on that particular activity. And this, of course, is based on your interests, or if you would like to take up a new hobby like knitting, working on a Sudoku problem, Scrabble, the crossword, you know, something that will really remove you from that hot situation and just help you realign and calm down. The other tip that one could try is developing an anchor. So that's usually a resource where you assign a person or a place or an object activity that leaves you feeling with a sense of relief and well-being. So you could opt to have a good friend or a relative as your anchor person, or you could opt to have a certain place as your anchor place. And sometimes if you're not able to get to your anchor, once you've assigned that concept in your mind, you can always go there for a quick break if you just need to remove yourself from a certain situation. Yeah, I think that's all I'd like to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophie, for that input. Quite very clear. Probably you can also take some questions. Yeah, you take some questions if we have any.
Okay, just looking at the comments.
Okay.
Nyambura Koril says, that's a fantastic presentation, Mongera. Yasmin Chalal, thank you so much. Please share the slides, and she's provided her email. And Esther Jarenga is also requesting that you share the slides and has provided her email. I don't see any other questions.
We have Catherine. Catherine was raising her hand, probably. You can take a comment or question from her.
Catherine, go ahead.
I was only clapping. I was saying congratulations. Okay. That's a good presentation. Thank you very much. And also requesting for the slides, please.
Okay. Okay, point taken. We will try to do that.
Hello. I'm
Yes,
Esther Mudia.
Yes.
Yes. What about if you are living with somebody who is taking care of such people in traumatic conditions, and you find that they are becoming hard to live with? They are always annoyed. They are always they are not peaceful even too, and they are always judgmental, and it's as if they have taken that into the client into their own, and you find that they start blaming you. Maybe you are the mother, and they say you are the one. When I was in the womb, you did that. They are taking. How can you help such a person?
Okay, maybe Sophie can answer, then I'll give some contribution.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Catherine, that sounds like a tough situation to be in. It also sounds like there could be other underlying issues, and maybe just a conversation with this person could help to find where they're coming from, with a deeper understanding of why they would say that to you. Because, and also sometimes when people are very stressed or going through traumatic stress, there's the blame game. And they're not really sure what's happening in their bodies. It's a scary thing, even from the symptoms that George has laid out. It's a scary experience. And sometimes when you're trying to figure things out, we lash out at those closest to us or those we love the most. And so just having that in mind as you try and engage this person and find out what's happening. If you feel that you're not able to do that yourself, you could trusted individual on board to help, maybe another relative, a family friend, and even just the 2 or 3 of you can sit down together to try and sort this thing out. And sometimes even just the act and showing this person that you care and you're concerned about what they're going through and saying is enough to iron some things out.
Okay, just something to add on that is,
Yes.
as we said, most of these people even are not aware of their own feelings, attitudes, and reactions. So in a way, in a calm way, trying to reflect their feelings and their attitude can be a awakening call, so that they are aware of themselves. So create some awareness that, by the way, these days, the way you are answering or the way you're behaving is different from the way you've been behaving before. So creating that awareness to them would also be very important. And again, also referring them for help, because they may not even be aware they have a problem. So kindly refer them for help so that they can get that help that they need. Remember, we said you are the support system. You make them function. You are part of the system that can make them function. So, and again, also sometimes by having that understanding of what you have gone through would help you not to take those issues personal. Now he's arrogant, she's, you understand where he or she is coming from and giving them the required support, other than taking it personal and making the situation worse. Yeah, I think that would be okay.
Thank you very much. Now I can try.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any other question or a comment as we come to the conclusion of our today's presentation? Probably, Dr. Kinuge, if you're still there, I can hand over to you and give us the closing remark. Okay. Sophie, probably can give your closing remark and then we close.
Thank you so much, Bwana George. I think also maybe one more question.
Okay.
I've noticed that the webinars are usually recorded. Is it possible to know where one could watch them later, or as a good resource? Because I think for me, I'm aware that sometimes when people are stressed, the memory is not so good, and so maybe there's some valuable information that they can get at a later date.
Okay. We will upload this. Yes, I'm informed that it will be uploaded in the KNH website.
Okay.
The COVID folder. You can get there and get the access to the material.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable resource for people to know. Thank you so much.
Okay,
I think for me, I just want to thank you for your very good presentation. I think it was very clear and well detailed. And that people should speak out when they feel that they're stressed or they're going through these difficult situations. Because when they come for services, there's no judgment and they have a space where they can get some much needed help. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Sophie, and even thank you for being part of this. And even everybody else who participated, we're very grateful. Now it is for us now to take the information to others, because there are many more others who are out there who would really need our input and our help. You can now, with the information, we can reach out to them, and even ourselves who are healthcare workers. This is also creating awareness of what we are going through, and then taking the necessary steps so that we can minimize that kind of trauma. Thank you so much, and taking time to listen, and I wish you all the best, and God bless you. Thank you.